everyone, I'm JG, and today we'll be reviewing what happened in the first season of RFR. RFR was a revamped version of the Durham's F1RR League, and so brought over many familiar faces as well as a multitude of team owners. Some team owners transferred from F1RR, including Mr. Robloxian, a former team principal of Toro Rosso that took control of McLaren, Jair, who resumed his role in owning Renault and hoping to continue the same dominance he had after being the champion of F1RR's first and only season, and Callum, who took over Red Bull. Aside from these three, there were multiple other former team owners or drivers from F1RR owning teams, such as Lazitz for Alfa Romeo, Dylan for Ferrari, JG for Haas, Link, who took over Mercedes, AJ, who ran Racing Point, Sinter for the infamous Red Bull development team Toro Rosso, and Noble Julian, who looked to bring Williams back to glory on the virtual grid. Aside from the list of 10 team owners, there were also 20 drivers that took to the grid at the start of the season. The expected championship contenders in the first season were mostly well-known veterans of the road racing community, and many of them played a vital role in the excitement for the first season. Ernest and Blaine headed the Racing Point team. Zerix and proven talent Idon were the likely guys to beat with the dominant Renault team. Hoffler and Hardman were both very skilled drivers that had taken podiums in F1RR and looked to do the same for Red Bull. Hadley established himself as a force to be reckoned with in many leagues before, and even with his failing F1RR, he still went for gold with McLaren. F1RR talent and driver owner JG highlighted the Haas team that consisted mostly of unknown rookies. WRA driver iLord and unknown Frenchman Dakar led the Ferrari team. Williams had the two FRA mates of Maximus and Friction at their disposal. Legit Odell was the expected leader of Mercedes. G-Man and Cold Breeze were the leaders of the widely unknown Alfa Romeo team, and TTB had low expectations going into his rookie season with Toro Rosso. The season would begin with the Bahrain preseason test, followed by Australia, Bahrain, Baku, Spain, Austria, Germany, Belgium, Italy, Singapore, Russia, Mexico, and Abu Dhabi to round out the season. Preseason testing in Bahrain gave us a good look at the pecking order for the grid and whether or not the development paths of each team would work out. Idon proved himself as an early competitor by setting the lap record at a 109.2, establishing himself as the early title favorite. Only Blaine and Hoffler were able to get into the 109s though, even with all 7 days, proving that these three may be the only ones with a chance of coming out on top at the end of the season. The running order seemed to be Renault, Racing Point, Red Bull, McLaren, and Haas in the top half of the field, with the rest of the teams fighting for the lower points on a good day. Finally, the RFR circus arrived in Australia for the first race of the season out of 13, and early on, Idon was determined to take an early championship lead with a win. With the majority of the grid bringing upgrades, the fight for the win was going to be even more interesting than before. Hoffler and Blaine were also right on pace, and so it seemed like it was going to be a 3-horse race for the win. However, a shock revelation for the race was that Idon and Hoffler would be forced to miss the season opener, and with that it opened the door for Blaine to dominate. However, a mid-race safety car brought the full field together, and an expert pit call by McLaren paved the way for Abdi to take the first win of the season, followed by Zerix and Blaine, who suffered a 15-second penalty for corner cuts. McLaren took an early lead in the constructors, being the only team with 2 drivers to finish the race. In Bahrain for race 2, Idon was straight up expected to dominate by everyone else on the grid, and Renault's early season pace left everyone playing catch-up. As expected, Blaine and Zerix were essentially the only ones even close throughout practice. But rookie Dakar 2 surprised many by being only 4/10 off Idon's time. Once more in the race, Idon absolutely dominated, even with the odd safety car for multiple wrecks on the track. A shock to many, critical of Haas got second place, the outfit's first ever podium in RFR, and iLord, after a good Australia, got third to continue the progress for Ferrari and to cement himself as a possible title contender. Hoffler and Ernest finished up the top 5, and once more Renault built up on their points lead in the constructors. Going into Baku, Toro Rosso was the only team not to bring some form of upgrades to the capital of Azerbaijan, and many teams elected to continue building up their engine. The most notable driver movement included the signing of downshift to Mercedes in order to try and finally get some points on the board. Blaine led all 3 practice sessions, proving that the Racing Point was easily the fastest in a straight line, with the Renault not far behind. For the start of the race, Blaine once more took an early lead, with Jair being only around a second off of him. An early lap 9 safety car for the stricken Haas of Critical, the podium finisher of last race, brought out varying strategies. However, a safety car after only one more lap for Clacky resulted in everyone being on the same strategy again. The top three teams from McLaren, Renault, and Racing Point engaged in an epic battle until late race safety car from Noble Julian's Broken Williams equalized the field once more. In a dramatic turn of events, Blaine's Racing Point suffered an electrical failure while in a 3.5-second lead to Ernest that caused his retirement right before the castle section. A late mistake from the lone remaining Racing Point of Ernest resulted in Idont going 2 for 2, with Ernest right behind and Abdi a full 9 seconds back. Wacky Jack came in a surprise fourth for McLaren, but it was not enough to keep up with Renault in the constructors. Spain hosted the Spanish Grand Prix for the fourth race of the season, and it was none other than Idont's time to flex his mighty Renault muscles and get 3 wins out of 3, with 3 consecutive fastest laps to go with it. Blaine, Hoffler, and Abdi constantly fought over the top 5. However, at the end, Hoffler and Abdi nabbed the other podium positions due to Blaine being demoted to 4th due to 20 seconds worth of penalties, with Wacky Jack once more finishing inside the top 5. Downshift and Noble Julian got more points on the board for their respective teams, and Zierk suffered a DNF due to car issues towards the end of the race. At this point, Idont had a 23-point lead over Abdi in the Drivers' Championship, and Renault were up by 22 points to McLaren in the Constructors. Going into Austria, multiple sources confirmed that Sinter would be stepping down from the team principal role of Toro Rosso. It was expected that Mange would be filling the role, as per multiple reports through the paddock. At the Thursday media day, this was confirmed, and it was understood it would result in nearly a full team reset, including the purchase of Clacky from Red Bull, as well as the release of Kevin Amatic. User was also brought into the team and was expected to be able to compete for points. However, a protest by rivals McLaren to the FIA proved that he had been illegally practicing after the curfew, and so he would be forced to start from the back for the next race he competed in. Idont, Blaine, Hoffler, and Maximus all were in very tight company during practice, with the times falling down all the way to the 101s. However, during the race, it was a change of fortune for Abdi that allowed him to pick up his second win of the season, with Maximus getting a remarkable second on his race debut in the Styrian Hills. Idont actually finished 3rd on the road, but a 5-second penalty for speeding in the pit lane demoted him behind Downshift, who picked up his first podium as a rookie driver just like Maximus. Jair pulled himself up to 5th after showing early pace in the race, and with that, continuing to keep Renault at the top of the constructors. Germany was a turning point for the season. Before the race, it was announced that Haas would sign Elodud as a main driver after being at Alfa Romeo since Bahrain. Elodud cited the toxic work environment at Alfa as the reasoning for the switch. By now, Idont had a fairly stable lead in the Drivers' Championship, 9 points over Abdi. With the mid-season break looming, it was Abdi's time to strike back. However, through practice, it appeared that Idont and Blaine would be fighting each other for the win once more. Abdi had not got much practice, and other drivers like Dakar and Hoffler were seemingly ready to pounce on a good chance for a podium result. Before qualifying, the news broke that Idont, similar to Australia, would be forced to sit on the sidelines for the Grand Prix due to feeling ill, and this meant that Abdi could get 3 points back in the championship. However, right before the gridding sequence, disaster struck, and Abdi's McLaren had an electrical failure that would see him have to retire and once more be unable to gain points in the championship fight. This left the door wide open for someone new to win, and through 5 races only, Abdi and Idont were able to finish first. The German Grand Prix was a sheer battle of talents, as experienced driver in Hoffler and young gun Dakar fought side by side in the closing laps, with Dakar somehow getting his dog of a Ferrari car to the finish line only 9/10 of a second ahead of Hoffler's Red Bull. Jair rounded out the podium with Downshift in 4th and Friction getting P5, a best career finish. With Dakar seemingly on top of the world, he was now a primary target for the teams to try and pick up for the upcoming season, after commonly being seen ranting about his terrible Ferrari upgrades and looking for a way out. Following the German Grand Prix, the FIA released a statement regarding the legality of the Red Bull and Renault cars following a protest from Racing Point. FIA announced that the Red Bull and Renault cars had illegal horsepower and weight specs since an unknown date. The FIA, however, also declared that because of the lack of clarity on the subject and the failure of the FIA to notice this beforehand, it determined that any form of penalty to the team would be unnecessary. The FIA before the season hands out spec cars to each team to upgrade on, so it's possible that there was a mistake in the process that resulted in this. The reaction to this was split, with some teams calling for the disqualification of those offenders. However, no further action was taken other than reverting those changes. Going into Spa for the Belgian Grand Prix, Ferrari announced that they had agreed to sign a 2-season extension with Dakar to the 1-season contract already signed. It was an unexpected move, as Dakar had thrashed the team previously and also reportedly had talked with other teams about a mid-season swap, but clearly nothing came to fruition. This likely was secured due to iLord leaving the team mid-season citing personal reasons. Mercedes and Alfa Romeo also agreed to a swap deal that would see Loisetto and Super Funny Max being sent to Mercedes and Downshift being sent to Alfa Romeo as a likely replacement for Elodude. Through free practice, Blaine, and Xerix constantly traded fastest laps, but newcomer Giovannitti for the Renault outfit proved to be a challenger for good points after being within the top 5 overall in practice. Giovannitti also set the lap record, with only him and Blaine dropping into the 127s. During the race, Giovannitti shocked everyone by absolutely dominating the rest of the pack as he came 14 seconds ahead of Maximus in the second place, and could only manage third. Warrior Gabriel and Super Funny Max rounded out the top 5, the move to Mercedes seemingly working out for the latter. Things didn't work out for Abdi though, as another DNF due to an engine failure saw him all of a sudden 24 points back on once more. Renault by now were a full 69 points ahead of McLaren going into the mid-season break, and at this point, summer break was going to be critical for many. Over the break, it was revealed that league ownership had transferred fully from Deathmapper to Blaine, and Blaine would retire from driving upon the season's end. It was also announced that the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix would be cancelled due to not enough setup time, leaving 12 races instead of 13. Even more news was released after the transfer window closed, that Mange would be handing off Toro Rosso ownership duties to Elodude, former Haas driver. Elodude departed from Haas amicably with team owner JG and said they may create a partnership with each other in future seasons. With the team secured otherwise, Season 2 rumors include Abdi moving over to current championship leaders Renault, likely alongside current rival Idont. Downshift, the two-time podium finisher, supposedly will be heading over to McLaren to replace Abdi, and Critical, the Haas driver, would move to Alpha as a replacement. As the teams arrived in Italy, it became apparent that Renault had the exact same pace as they left with, by locking out the free practices. Such fortunes continued in the race, with Idont taking a huge victory over Blaine and Kundai grabbing his first podium with the McLaren outfit. Abdi could only manage fourth, and with that he continued to fall back from Idont in the championship, by now more than a full race. Aboud finished in a surprise P5 in only his second race, proving that perhaps he is someone to look out for in the future. Shortly after Italy, the management announced the S2 regulations, which should slightly change specs like 580 horsepower engines, new upgrade regulations and limits, and mandatory pit stops to add an element of strategy. The streets of Singapore played host to the next round of the championship, and early in the week it was confirmed that Idont would not be in attendance throughout the weekend due to other racing obligations, and due to this it gave Abdi an opportunity to close the gap in the points. Through practice, Giovannitti continued to dominate everyone else in the field, and only Hoffler was able to be anywhere close to him. In the race, though, Giovannitti led early, and throughout the race it seemed he would definitely win. However, a late race safety car due to Niccoli's crash meant that everyone would have fresh tires and a chance at winning. In all of this, Hoffler proved that he had the short race pace to win, along with Jair, who came out of nowhere to finish second, and Giovannitti, who sank late to finish third. Hyundai got fourth once again, and Abdi, in all of this, could only get fifth, showing that maybe he isn't able to fight for the title as much as everyone else thought. After Singapore, news broke of the first Season 2 driver transfer, and it was a banger for sure. Abdi confirmed with his manager that he would be moving to Red Bull to try and fight for the title alongside Hoffler. It was unknown by this point who would be his replacement, but reports emerged that Dakar might have agreed with a settlement with Ferrari to revert the extension he previously signed and jump ship over to Haas alongside good friend JG. This time it was announced that, following an FIA investigation, Alfa Romeo team principal Lazets was deemed unfit to be managing the team, and so driver and higher-up G-Man took the team principal duties for the remainder of the season. Going into Monaco, nobody was really sure who would be the favorite for the race. Idont remained on the sides for Renault, and so Giovannitti once more took over and won for the second time in the season. Abdi finally broke his 4-race streak of not being on the podium with second, and Warrior Gabriel in third. Downshift got fourth for Alfa Romeo, and Clacky got P5, his highest finish of the season. A meme of the times, Loisetto was notably shafted out of a podium after Noah Gamer wrecked out with only a few laps to go, causing a safety car and making him lose the positions after the restart. Following Idont missing 2 races, Abdi was now only 10 points behind Idont going into the last 2 races of the season, preparing for a tense championship finale. Russia was the location of the penultimate race of the season and was set to be a vital one for the championship hopes of Abdi. With Renault only needing to start the race in order to lock up the Constructors' Championship, all eyes focused on Abdi and Idont for what was set to be an epic battle. However, the race, rather ironically, wasn't that epic for Idont, who ended up finishing 12th due to a drive-through penalty for corner cuts following a safety car restart. With that, Giovannitti once more cruised to an easy victory and left Abdi in second place and also the championship lead for the first time since Australia, where he won. Warrior Gabriel placed third for the second consecutive week, and Super Phony Max had a rebound race with Mercedes after struggling to get much out of the car from their early success. AJ got fifth, his career highest finish, and looking at the constructors, it was going to be a big battle between Ferrari, Mercedes, and Williams for fifth in the final standings. Mexico played host in the final race of the championship, the last of 12, and it was said to be really decisive for the drivers' results. With everything on the line, Abdi and Idont constantly exchanged fastest laps throughout practice, and going into the race, Idont held the early lead. By staying in front, he kept himself ahead of all the chaos, and with an expert pit strategy, he was able to outplay Abdi, and while under pressure in second, he himself went wide and allowed Gabriel to get by. At the same time, Idont did everything he had to and took the win in the final race, and to everyone's surprise, Gabriel got second by a healthy margin over Abdi, meaning Idont was the RFR Season 1 champion. Maximus got fourth to end out a somewhat successful season, and Giovinazzi got fifth to finish up what was a remarkable second half of the season. The final points looked like this. Idont would finish in the lead with 156 points ahead of Abdi's 153. In third place was Giovinazzi with 104. Fourth was Gabriel with 82, and fifth was Hoffler with 79. The constructor standings looked like this. Renault, the champions of the constructors, were a full 100 and then some points ahead of McLaren in second, and Racing Point was even further back in third, with Red Bull in fourth and Williams beating out everyone else in the midfield for fifth. On January 24th, 2020, approximately 5 months after the season's conclusion and right into the start of Season 2, the FIA released a document in regards to their findings of an investigation of all impounded cars from last season. It was determined that the championship-winning Renault car was not balanced properly like it should have been at the start of the season. It is expected that this may have brought the Renault car half a second or more faster than the Red Bull, the noted correct car. The document also noted that incorrect toe angles were to blame for the lack of pace in the McLaren and Racing Point cars. It was also discovered that the current version Mercedes was fundamentally flawed and that Mercedes was to be reverted to an older version of the car. FIA announced, however, that there would be no sanctions on any of the teams and that the cars would be balanced as deemed appropriate, not to cause an issue in the future. Many drivers were outraged that the Renault was not disqualified from Season 1, including runner-up Abdi. It was determined that it was of no fault of the team and would be rectified without damaging them. Thank you all for watching this highlights video. I hope you guys enjoyed, and the Season 2 recap will be out soon.